Hello Canada! Welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Guy. Well, good news. Throat is starting to come back. Still the frog creeps in every now and then, so bear with me. We got quite the episode here today. Michelle Rempel Garner came out, had just a great little presser, and we're going to kind of go over not just the seriousness of the bill that she's proposing, which definitely needs to be done. As always, you can't live in a society. You can't expect a society to function fairly if the system itself allows for injustices and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tier systems within it, treating different races, different cultures, different peoples, well, differently. We're also going to dive on to a little bit of a bombshell that came out here thanks to Dan Messier. He dropped this. This is a good one. I did a little bit of research on this. This is huge. Now, we know Brookfield is a vampiristic like identity. They use anything possible to, take over and control anything they can for power and money. Well, like Count Chocula herself, Carney. This is pretty big. This has a clinic that has been illegally selling donated plasma and blood to foreign countries, in which Brookfield has been trying really hard to take over. I'm going to dive into that as well. We're also going to get involved in some documents that Rebel News got a hold of that expose just more hypocrisy. And when Trump gets wind of this, like, you think we're in trouble right now around the world? Like, China hates us, Europe hates us, the States hates us. Watching us go into socialist tyranny, the fall from our greatness that we once were. Carney, hey, military, you're wondering why you all didn't get that promised 20% raise? Well, we're going to expose that, thanks to Rebel News, on how, they're decarbonizing the military, and it's going to go into the actual budget. He's going to try to wiggle this into the costing towards meeting our 5%. And wait, there's more. We're going to deal with these wildfires. I'm going to expose just a little bit of reality and, just some other hypocrisies if we have time. But let's get started with Michelle Rempel. Kate, pay attention to how she is greeted by the left-wing lunatics of the propaganda media. You can't make this stuff up, people.
Good morning on a very wet Ottawa morning, one in which I found myself without an umbrella about 30 seconds ago. So, good morning, everyone.
Just left hanging. They don't care. Bought and paid for propaganda. You would think, being, Canadian, funny or not, you would chuckle because you're Canadian. And you would be wanting to be part of, obviously, a communique. No. Propaganda. So let's get on with the importance of what she has to say.
Today I'm announcing that Conservatives will introduce legislation to amend the criminal code and restore the value of Canadian citizenship by ending the practice of judges considering a non-citizen's immigration status in sentencing. Since 2013, a Supreme Court ruling has permitted judges to consider immigration status when sentencing. This has been seen in several recent high-profile cases. For example, a permanent resident received a conditional sentence after being convicted of trying to purchase sexual services from a 15-year-old, as a stronger penalty would have hindered him and his wife from obtaining Canadian citizenship. Another non-citizen in Canada on a visitor's permit was convicted twice of groping an 18-year-old woman's genitals at a bar, yet received a discharge to avoid a permanent criminal record and to allow for an appeal of their deportation. Anyone seeking residence or citizenship in Canada has responsibilities as well as rights. When it comes to sentencing non-citizens, Canada has essentially adopted a form of two-tier justice where judges can and have given lighter sentences to individuals who are non-citizens by virtue of this ruling. This offends all principles of fairness that should be foundational to our justice system. This is why, once the House of Commons resumes this fall, Conservatives will introduce legislation to amend the Criminal Code to rectify this issue. Our bill will add a section after Section 718.202 of the Criminal Code, which will expressly outline that any potential impact of a sentence on the immigration status of a convicted non-citizen offender or that of their family members should not be taken into consideration by a judge when issuing a sentence. I want to be very clear. The vast majority of Canada's immigrants and temporary residents abide by our law. But removing non-citizens who have been convicted of serious crimes is a no-brainer, and it's one which the Liberals have failed to act upon. By contrast, Conservatives will always fight to protect Canadians, the value of our citizenship, and the safety of every person who lives here. Becoming a Canadian is a privilege, not a right. Thank you.
Logistically, you already have a private member's bill on notice about online harms. Is that one taking a back burner to bring this forward, or is another Conservative MP going to present this PFE?
Stay tuned until the fall.
And on the by-election, I'm just curious, do you think that Pierre Poilievre needs to have at least 80% vote in that to maintain caucus support?
Well, what I can say is I was out in Battle River Crowfoot last weekend, and there was a lot of enthusiasm and support for both him and our party on the doors. I think that the residents of that area are, knowing them well, some of the people who have been most let down by the Liberal government, and where our party's message and Pierre's message has resonated. So he's working hard, and it's nice to see the uptake from that community.
Do you support the bans that are in place on hiking and other recreational activities in forested areas in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, given the wildfire considerations right now?
Sure. Well, first of all, the fear that people experience during wildfire season is something that a lot of Canadians know. You know, I think back to what happened in Jasper National Park last year as an Albertan, and so my hearts are with them and their concern, and also with the firefighters and first responders who put their lives in harm's way during these situations. But I also think about the utter lack of action from the federal government on the issue of forest fires. I think it's four seasons ago now, 4 full wildfire seasons ago, the Liberals promised more water bombers, more.
They did. Trudeau came out and promised it. $500 million, 1,000 more trained personnel. Nothing. We got nothing.
Firefighters, where are they? The other thing is that my Conservative colleague Mark Dalton put forward a bill to increase the penalties for people who commit arson that causes a wildfire. So these are both measures that could have prevented and contained wildfire, and the Liberals have done nothing. So wait, my concern is this. Whenever there's a major crisis, what the Liberal government has done by their inaction has conditioned Canadians to expect that the only response they can see out of their federal government is to restrict their movement. And again, I understand that people, I understand the fear and concern of people in the Maritimes right now, but that the only response they get from their federal government is a tacit, well, I guess you're going to have to restrict your movement. That's not right. So, you know, today we're calling upon the federal government to actually get serious about this issue, pass our bill, put forward the resources that they promised so that Canadians aren't put into this situation. I see this as a lack of responsibility on the federal government.
Should the federal government intervene to stop an Air Canada work stoppage?
I was really excited to see our party leader, Pierre Poilievre, come out and reemphasize the need for legislation that we put forward in the last session. My colleague, Leanne Rood, put forward a bill regarding one of the flight attendants' key concerns, which is unpaid wages for while they're performing duties that are essential to passenger safety. And as somebody who is a frequent flyer, I think they should be paid for that too. So I hope that the union and management can come to an agreement on this, but certainly the principles that were contained in that bill last year are things that we stand behind as a party.
Now, you would think, considering why unions were created is because there was no backup by the government. This is when unions were good. They came out, they had purpose. They changed a lot of, third world conditions in first world countries to give workers better protections, better pay, to not work them into the ground, to treat them as people, not animals, and all the rest that came with it. The idea of being able to have a pension plan, the idea of investments, the idea of just share opportunities, everything. And you've got this government who's supposed to be for the people union. We're a union, who, by the way, have screwed the unions over and over and over and over and over again, previous episodes. Wouldn't back this bill. This was put in over a year ago. They fought to get this bill passed. The Liberals and NDP fought tooth and nail. They don't care that the corporations work you without pay. They don't care. So, what good are your unions? This has been going on for decades. The states got on it. A lot of the actual states, independent states, were like, "Whoa, this ends. This is completely contrary to any type of work ethic, any type of proper protocol to treat humans in a decent manner." Where are the liberals? Oh, right. Socialists gone fascists. This whole strike could have been avoided if we had if we didn't have children, socialist fascist children, who look at the pretty pictures in the Marxist books and think, "Oh, this is great." Now, about Air Canada.
Orderly shutdown of operations. This, as Canada's largest airline, faces a potential strike by flight attendants. All flights by Air Canada and Air Canada Rouge will be grounded by the weekend. Customers whose flights are cancelled can get a full refund. The decision follows a 72-hour strike notice coming from the union representing 10,000 flight attendants. In response, Air Canada issued a lockout notice for early Saturday morning. The airline said it reached an impasse in talks after the union declined to enter a binding arbitration process. The union says nothing has changed on their end.
Our members are still going to work. Our members are still there greeting customers, still doing the unpaid portions at the beginning, and still attempting to get people to their destination as long as the planes are flying. There's nothing at this time that we've said, okay, stop doing. So it should be business as usual from the employee standpoint.
The Canadian Federation of Business today calling on the airline and the union to resolve the issue with no disruption to service. Failing that, they're calling on Ottawa to immediately intervene to avoid the significant economic damage a strike would have on the Canadian economy, which is already feeling the impact from the ongoing tariff dispute with the United States. With me now to discuss is Marty Firestone.
This shouldn't be going on. This shouldn't be going on, obviously, because that bill should have been passed if we had a real government, which we don't. And again, my personal belief is that they should get Parliament in session right now, emergency Parliament. They should pass that bill that the Liberals and NDP fought so hard against, to give equal pay for hours worked. Then they should legislate into law that there should be back pay paid to any abuses of employers to their employees through bonuses of the stock, CEOs, head management, or through giving them payment in stocks or shares. This would end it. And in this circumstance, give power to the people who would actually clean this disgusting corporation up. These people have been abusing their pilots, their cooking staff, the luggage areas. Every single aspect has been just trampled on. This Air Canada is in the news at least every year or two. Major issues. They end up settling, and in the end they win. They win. They never give what should be given. They never have to pay what they've taken, and they never get slapped for the wrongs and the abuses they've done. And now this is one of the worst. Like, seriously, I can't. When I found out, I was just in shock. I was in shock. They work so hard. They work so hard. Give them back pay. They deserve that. And for crying out loud, give them a respectable wage. God, Canada, the Liberals have just destroyed our nation. Well, don't worry, they'll fill that with temporary foreign workers at half the wage, driving down their costs for the corporation, driving away Canadians from wanting to even have that job because it doesn't pay, because they don't get subsidized by the government as well, like we do with our immigrants that are flooding the country. That, by the way, we're still waiting for the stats. They're hiding them from us. Yeah, what a joke. Now, listen to the hateful propaganda.
Just on the by-election, you didn't answer specifically. Does he need to maintain around 80% support for caucus to still back him? Is there any concern that he's been out of the conversation too long?
The media has given, for the first time in history, more airtime to non-party affiliated candidates running in this by-election than ever before. It's just more proof of the abusive nature of propaganda. Propaganda is the most powerful tool. And this is why we can't get rid of this government. Now they got their claws in, and now that they control propaganda, now that they're controlling every aspect of everything the Canadians see, hear, and do, it's going to be even more difficult to get rid of them. And the worst part is that unless you like, share, and subscribe, there's very little chance of others getting the truth. Sorry, just the truth, just the facts, and exposing the hypocrisy of what's going on. This is propaganda. Not only was the question asked, they're looking for sound bites and video clips. This is what propaganda does. This is disgusting.
Look, I want to be very clear. Our caucus supports our leader, Pierre Poilievre. My membership, my board supports him. And when I was out on the doors in Battle River Crowfoot, there's a lot of support for him too. So that's what I'm focused on. And again, he's got a very strong team behind him who, supports what he's doing and his commitment after, it's been a long and tiring year. So I'm looking forward to having him back in the House so he can be doing these announcements. And we're going to have a very strong fall with him at the helm.
Last question, your thoughts on canola, the 75%?
Yes. Wow. That is the canola tariffs, devastating for Western Canada. And completely avoidable, I think, if the federal Liberal government had done what they promised to do during the campaign, which was fight for Canadians against unjustified tariffs. Last week, my party leader did announce, in the middle of a by-election, some pretty serious measures that will protect a wide variety of industries, but like, where are the Liberals on this, right? Where are they? Why aren't they out here today having a press conference on this? This matter needs immediate reaction. I can't, as a Western Canadian, I cannot stress how devastating this is to our economy and to our agricultural producers. So yeah, it's serious, and I expect immediate action out of the Liberal government. Thank you.
Now, the kicker is that I watched all mainstream, I had the multiple monitors going last night during the supper hour to see how they were going to treat this. I already knew. And you got idiots like Judy Trin and the rest of these, the CBC, the CTV, the Global. They did the clips. Now, I don't have time on this episode to go through and show you these segments because I got a lot to cover here, but they purposely cut out what Canada needs to see, which is that, now listen carefully, Eastern Canada, the canola industry, the farming sector that is being hit and has been hit with this massive Chinese tariffs before Trump came along, and is actually costing our GDP more than what Trump's tariffs are costing us. Are you hearing this? This industry employs more people and brings in more revenue than the steel, aluminum, copper, and automotive sectors combined. By them hiding that from Canada, like they purposely clipped that out. So all it seems like is that Mo is asking to give the farmers the same respect and the same type of compensation and backing from the federal government that they've been giving to like the EV sector, which doesn't account for, I think it's 13% of what the canola accounts for. Think about that. Instead, the way they do it, it makes it seem as though, well, this is irrelevant. Look, the West wants, they always want. No. They don't want the East to really know the power the West has, the fundamental value we really are to this nation. This is why the West needs out. This is why the West wants out. And if Canada realized, if they really had the truth, just the truth, just the facts, of how big of an industry this sector is, maybe they would think twice about electing socialists in power, especially seeing how the separatist movement is growing. And by the way, daily. Ah man, on my social media accounts, I got people who were against it that are now apologizing and going, wow, thanks for exposing that. I didn't know that. Unbelievable. Yeah, I'm totally with it. My parents are all on board now. Yeah, brothers and sisters are all on board now. They just need to see the truth, the reality. And trust me, when the West goes, Canada's done. Canada will be the 51st state. Again, previous episodes, Trudeau's already sold us out for American interests by doing everything he has in the last 10 years, in which Carney's following through on. But Carney's in trouble because Trump now holds all the cards. And now his whole green global cabal is having a hard time because they're dealing with the strongest economy on the planet and the largest military to boot. Now, let's dabble onto this air.
He's president of Travel Secure Incorporated. Marty, hello to you. Thank you so much for being with us. Important
my bad. I was already there. Now, let's get on to this. Exclusive documents that Rebel has found. When Trump gets wind of this, oh my God, do you think we're in trouble now? And for all the military out there, you wondering why you actually didn't get your raises that he promised? Instead, he kind of just threw some scraps at you. This is why. This is where he's laundering the money. And trust me, it's all going to his shareholders, making him millions. That's right. Listen carefully.
Mark, Carney says he's boosting defense spending, $8 billion more for Canada's military, but here's the catch. half of that increase, about $4.2 billion, is being flushed down the drain on climate vanity projects. Not weapons, not gear, not housing or retention, just woke climate reparations paid in carbon credits and solar panels. And we have the documents to prove it.
In those circumstances, from Vimy to Juno, that the world came to know the value of our strength. But now we're working alongside the European Union to combat climate change, to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and to protect, amongst other things, academic and scientific freedoms. In these ways, the world knows the strength of our values.
Is it still your expectation that NATO countries spend 5% of their GDP on defense spending?
I think they should do that. I don't think we should, but I think they should. We've been supporting NATO so long. In many cases, I believe paying almost 100% the cost. So I don't think we should, but I think that the NATO countries should, absolutely. You know who else was a low payer, just about the lowest? A place called Canada. Because Canada said, why should we pay when the United States will protect us free?
The Department of National Defense is sinking $4.27 billion into decarbonizing the military. That's nearly half of the new defense spending that Prime Minister Mark Carney announced. And the cost per ton of CO2 reduced? A laughable, wasteful $472, whatever that means. But that's more than double what even Trudeau's carbon tax justified. This isn't defense spending. It's eco-extortion. And while the Department of National Defense dumps billions into fighting the weather, soldiers are struggling to fight it all. In Latvia, Canadian troops are deployed as part of NATO's deterrence force. But they're buying their own helmets and tactical vests. Why? Because the ones they're issued are decades old and don't meet modern battlefield standards. The standard CG-634 helmet, it was cutting edge in 1997. Today it's practically a souvenir, but the government has money for carbon audits. As if that wasn't insulting enough, the military has also implemented a federal policy mandating tampon dispensers in the men's washrooms on military bases. Soldiers who protested or even removed the embarrassing dispensers were threatened with discipline. Some units even floated the idea of launching hate crime investigations over it. So, no money for ear protection, no housing, but rest assured, if you need a pad in the men's stall on a forward operating base, they got you covered.
Our military infrastructure and equipment have aged, hindering our military preparedness. We recognize that only one of our 4 submarines is seaworthy, that less than half our maritime fleet and land vehicles are operational.
On August 8th, Prime Minister Mark Carney announced that he would be giving all members of the Canadian Armed Forces a pay raise. The pay raise amounts to roughly an additional $2 billion in spending. Now, it is a welcome hike in pay. However, it's still half of what the Liberals are spending to combat climate change in the armed forces. Now, here's the real crisis: retention. Last year alone, 5,000 members quit the Canadian Armed Forces. That's a historic drain of trained, experienced personnel walking away in frustration. Look at this. The highest attrition rates within the Canadian Armed Forces are observed amongst its lowest ranks and newest members, said a report which pointed to the 2023-2024 fiscal year, where 9.4% of newly enrolled members quit, as opposed to 4.3% average across all of the Canadian Armed Forces. The reason new members are quitting? Training delays and difficulty adjusting to military life.
Can't blame them. Not only do most strong people I know are libertarian or conservative. They're not liberal. They're not enablers. The natural fighter in them is there because of freedom. So most of the younger generation I know who were thinking of joining the military scoff at it and have found different jobs. And I wasn't surprised while this was going on. And now, of course, now they're much older now, so the military is, kind of irrelevant. But it only took 2 or 3 years of Trudeau to shake them off and go, wow, I will not serve under this type of a leader. No way. In no way. And then after the Wuhan, that ended it. and of the more than half dozen people I knew who were solidly, that was their goal, graduate and go straight to the military, they're not. You add that to menstrual products in bathrooms, to this whole wokeism, and the fact that these people don't even have the gear. They don't even have the proper gear. They get kicked out of games, out of combination games through countries that they use to learn how to not only fight for each other, but to better themselves and their units in combat situations. They're not allowed to play the games because, well, they're in children's clothing by a childish government. This is ridiculous. Trump's going to get wind of this. This is just going to be another huge fact on, well, just wait till this whole CUSMA comes through. We're going to get the crap beat out of us because elbows up, everybody, head in the sand. Now, let's get on to this bombshell that dropped here today. This is Dan Messier. Conservatives are calling for an investigation into foreign corporations cashing in on Canadians' blood. The Globe and Mail reports that Spanish drug maker Grifols is selling products made with plasma obtained from Canadian blood donations, despite Canadian Blood Services promising that nothing would be sold offshore. Now we've uncovered that Brookfield Asset Management has been aggressively trying to buy Grifols over the last year. Carney is personally invested in Brookfield and could personally profit if a takeover goes through. Here comes the frog. Canadians' blood donations should save lives here, not line the pockets of foreign corporations or the Prime Minister. Conservatives are demanding the Health Committee launch an immediate investigation. Read our letter below. So, Globe and Mail responded to Spanish drug maker Grifols is profiting from the international sale of products made from blood plasma donated by Canadians. This is despite a 2022 pledge from the CEO of the Canadian Blood Services, CBS, that plasma collected from Canadians and none of the product made from plasma would be sold offshore. Equally troubling is the fact that Brookfield Asset Management has been working to acquire Grifols over the past year. Brookfield made a multi-billion-dollar takeover bid for the company in late 2024 and was again reported to be in contact with shareholders regarding an acquisition in April 2025. Even if no acquisition has been reached to date, this pattern signals Brookfield's ongoing desire to take control of a firm profiting from Canadian blood donations. Given Mark Carney's significant personal investments in Brookfield, we are further concerned about Prime Minister's potential financial conflict of interest in this matter. By the way, who was running Brookfield when this corporate takeover was challenged and put into effect? That's right, the bloodsucker himself, Carnage Carney, Count Chocula, whatever you want to call him. So these facts raise two important questions that must be investigated. Why are the foreign corporations such as Grifols profiting off blood plasma donated by Canadians without their knowledge? And what would Mark Carney's financial gain be if Brookfield acquired Grifols, given the company has worked to take control of a firm that profits from Canadian plasma? And as always, I post all the links below so you'll have full access to all of this documentation. As such, we urge you to recall the Standing Committee on Health to investigate both the use of Canadian donated plasma by Grifols and the potential conflicts of interest arising from the Prime Minister's investments in Brookfield Asset Management, given its attempts to acquire Grifols. Canadians expect their donated blood plasma to save lives in Canada and not to be turned into profits for foreign companies or the Prime Minister. Sick. These people are sick. Here's an article published August 21st, 2024. Brookfield seeks US $10.6 billion to back Grifols' takeover. The Toronto-based investor has asked banks to put up the funds to refinance Grifols' existing debt. This is all done in order to literally steal this company. That's what a takeover is. Brookfield Asset Management is asking banks to line up 9.5 billion euro, 10.6 billion American of debt for its potential take-private deal for Spanish pharmaceutical producer Grifols SA, according to people with knowledge of the matter. The Toronto-based investor has asked banks to put up the funds to refinance Grifols' existing debt, which includes loans of high-yield bonds, including to the people who asked not to be named because the talks are private. Participating banks would commit to offer the financing before selling it to investors. As always, again, you can read this full article over. This is the evil that has taken the seat, the highest seat in our country. Canada, we're in trouble here. Scary times. Now, I'm going to go over to this. I want to play a little wee bit of today's presser from New Brunswick, Susan Holt, and just kind of expose a little bit of the hypocrisy and the stupidity of what is going on.
Of the 6 new fires today, the 16 total fires, is there any indication about what is starting these fires, or how important is it that determining the cause of these fires? How important is that right now?
Determining the cause of the fires is something that you do after you've put the fire out. And so the priority is to get on them quickly and to make sure they don't become the kind of fires that consume resources and put lives at risk. And thankfully, the team has done an incredible job, thanks to New Brunswickers as well, for getting to those fires quickly, being aware that they exist, and getting them put out so that folks who are reading that dashboard or that PDF every 15 minutes are seeing that the fire appears, and then it's patrolled, and then it's out within a matter of time, and then we can reallocate the resources back to where they're needed. So, and then the work of figuring out what caused it and why, that happens after the fact.
Now, believe it or not, for those who don't know, the RCMP have the ability to track phones. They can, for safety purposes, they can actually zone an area where a fire started. They can then access the database, and they can trace the phones that were there in that time frame from when the fire was started. It's a no-brainer. Why isn't this being done? Food for thought, people. Food for thought. Moving on.
Hi, we've had reports of logging trucks coming out of wood roads leading to private woodlots in parts of Victoria County. I'm just wondering why the province hasn't formally restricted activity on private woodlots yet.
Listen carefully. They want all the power. These are socialists. These people don't care about you. Just like Michelle pointed out. Rather than actually fight the fight where it needs to be, they put Canadians on their back heels and then take their rights away. This is fear, hate, and division. This is how socialist parties work. Scare the bejesus out of the people. They want access. They want the power to restrict landowners, but they can't. So this is what they're doing instead.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, I'll take that. If there are, so the precautions that we put in place, I believe last Thursday, was essentially to shut down all forestry operations on Crown land. That also extended, to be clear, to private land from a harvesting perspective. Is that in order to harvest, they need a permit from DNR. Those permits were suspended last Thursday. So we are urging woodlot owners and those on freehold land to respect that prohibition with respect to harvesting.
Urging, are they? No. They're forcing anything any way possible to take away the rights and freedoms of Canadians. So if we can't do it because the law protects them, let's stretch the boundaries and see how far we can go to shut down, to actually remove homeowners, landowners' rights. Evil begets evil, people. Moving on.
Andrew Waugh, Post Media.
Hi, Premier. So, wanted to first get your reaction to this letter that you and Minister Herrick recently received from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, warning you that if you don't, loosen these rules, you may, quote, be brought to heel in court. What do you think of all that?
Now, what did he say? What's so funny, Holt?
Thanks for the question, Andrew. New Brunswick has taken a really targeted, balanced approach to do what is needed and just what is needed in order to respond to this threat to our province, to people's lives and livelihood. And so we've done that under the advice of our of government and of government's lawyers, and under the authorities that we hold to do so on Crown land.
Okay. So my second question, I've been listening to all these answers about who can do what, who can't do what, trying to understand the difference between banning ATVs going on these trails and logging roads, but then allowing logging trucks to go on logging roads. Like, surely if an ATV represents a spark threat, then a logging truck represents a spark threat. Can somebody explain the logic here? Because I'm struggling with it.
Yeah, I'm sure the minister will jump in on this, but there is some logic. The consideration that we're making right now for exceptions to allow trucking to go and pick up wood on the side of the road comes with a whole bunch of conditions around having the water, having the permits, having the fire spotters, having other things, as you would have seen in previous years and in Nova Scotia. That means we've got mitigation strategies in place. Asking for those kinds of mitigation strategies for a recreational ATV activity as opposed to for an activity that's employing New Brunswickers who are not in the woods right now and not working are two different things. And so that's why the ban of all activity on Crown lands and then the exceptional treatment with conditions and consideration for particular employment and economic activities are two distinct things.
Nothing to add. Exactly. That's it.
Jacques Poitras, CBC.
Oh, here we go. CBC.
Hi, I hear what you're saying about no conclusive conclusions, as you put it, about the cause of the two big fires, but if you have any preliminary observations or awareness, if you could be a bit transparent about that, whether there was human activity, industrial activity, that might go a long way to addressing some of the rumors online, some of the conspiracy theories we hear about in our newsroom.
Conspiracy theories, because they need to control their climate agenda. Now, here's the reality. Police are investigating 4 suspicious fires in downtown St. John's. Now, of course, this is a different province, but this is just to give you an example of what they're not putting on mainstream television. They report this in these small little hidden articles. This is done in the small magazines, kind of like how the Saskatchewan CBC, CTV, and Global will mention that Scott Moe was correct in saying that the industry being impacted with these new Chinese tariffs is larger than the steel, aluminum, copper, and entire automobile sector combined. The national networks don't. This is something I saw decades ago, and what woke me up to it was when I was working in Quebec. They lie through their teeth in Quebec. It's not necessarily how they lie. It's what they don't tell you, what they hide from you, and how they word it. Propaganda. The RNC is investigating
fires total that we're aware of connected to this investigation. And, with an active investigation, I don't want to get into the weeds or really get into the specifics. We want information that's coming to us from witnesses to be unimpacted by anything I share here today. But what we can tell you is that our investigation to this stage has determined that these fires are suspicious in nature.
Do you have any suspects?
Right now, we do have a suspect, but we're still working through information on that matter.
Do you think someone said it intentionally to hurt other people?
I mean, we're talking about motive now, right? We're not at that stage in the investigation. Right now, we're still looking at the information we've received, looking for more video, reviewing video, and it's still very much a moving, breathing investigation.
Yeah. Right. Let's get back to propaganda.
This is going to be a regular occurrence in these briefings. If I can have something that could have a preliminary finding or some kind of a guide, I'll commit to do that in the next time that we meet. If it's still not conclusive at that time, that still might be the answer. But if we have some preliminary findings, or I don't want to use the word assumptions, but because it has to be evidence based. But if we have something to share on that, I'll commit to do that next time we're together.
Secondly, heat records have been broken all week. Rainfall's below average. Climate scientists tell us this is not an outlier, but...
Climate scientists. Right. The ones paid for by the government. The ones funded by Soros, the WEF, the people pushing this agenda. Not real scientists. I've shown real scientists. This whole carbon is a lie. It's been proven. It's been debunked. It's just unbrainwashing a generation, which is the most difficult. And it's really hard to do when you've got these types of liars, propaganda pushers, still trying to promote this.
A sign of things to come. Can you just address what New Brunswickers should expect every summer going forward in this regard?
Maybe the holistic answer.
Well, yeah, I can do. I mean, obviously, our focus right now is on dealing with the case at hand, but we agree that this is something that we can expect to see more frequently in the future, and that's why, as I referenced, we were grateful for some of the investments that were made. After the Bocabec fires 3 years ago, we sort of improved our ability to address them, and there's lots of things we're learning in this response that we're going to be able to act on to be better prepared for future years, and hopefully lots of things New Brunswickers are learning as well about how we have to think about our own activities in terms of dry conditions, in terms of heat conditions, and this is something even our Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure is looking at, critical infrastructure in a changing climate, and what do we need to do when we build communities to make sure that they are resilient and sustainable, and that we're creating building the kind of province that can live into the future under the conditions that are forecast to be warmer, drier, and have more of these things occurring.
Yeah, complete imbeciles. Complete imbeciles. Now, this is from the other day. I was going to show it, but I decided I'm going to wait until the right time. This goes to what I was showing earlier about the Governor Turd, who worked for Carney during the last 10 years, who promised all of this money. And in the meantime, you have conservative provinces who have been sinking their own money conservatively towards necessities in order to battle these wildfires. Listen carefully.
Water bombers are outfitted to operate at night and use night scanners, but our local water bombers are not. Is there consideration or plan to outfit our firefighting aircraft for night operations to help prevent flare-ups?
So our water bombers, as you say, they are not. We are using scanners that are used by I think ground search and rescue to help identify hotspots and so on into the evening. The two Black Hawk helicopters that are coming from Utah are equipped to operate at night, so we certainly look forward to those arriving.
Oh, from Utah. an exorbitant price. Why didn't you do what Alberta did?
Two.
When did you say they were arriving, sorry?
Thursday.
Thursday, thank you.
You mentioned some help from the federal government. Do you have any idea of what that help will be towards, like what they will help out with?
I mean, we have a disaster financial assistance relief program, so certainly we have to get to the threshold before that kicks in. I think it's probably safe to say if we're not there, we're going to get there. We don't have confirmation, of course, of what has been lost. So that program looks at providing assistance to rebuild all kinds of infrastructure, including roads and bridges. So we don't know exactly what's been lost yet, but that's certainly one of the things we look forward to talking to the federal government about. I also know from my time in public safety that there was conversations about that program being outdated. I think the threshold is, $1 million or $2 million. We've had numerous disasters that have crossed that threshold fairly quickly in the last 3 or 4 years. So I think it's safe to say that we'll be advocating to the federal government to update programs and look at more serious financial assistance in the event that any province has disasters like this.
Now, this is how the Liberals treat things, especially when they have an agenda. So instead of spending their money wisely and equipping these planes with these types of thermal radars that they can fly at night, not only bomb at night, but detect hotspots at night. No. That they don't want to solve the problem. They feed off of the problem. Fear, hate, and division. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely embarrassing. Canada is so screwed. Now, here's a few little oddities I'm going to show before I shut this episode down. This came out. The Quebec engineering body has found former SNC-Lavalin CEO guilty of multiple counts of misconduct. Former SNC-Lavalin Group Chief Executive Jacques Lemeray has been found guilty of 7 of 14 allegations of misconduct made against him by Quebec's Professional Order of Engineers. Last fall, the Disciplinary Council of l'Ordre des Ingénieurs du Québec began several days of hearings to decide whether Mr. Lemeray infringed the organization's code of ethics and professional duties in the early 2000s when he was CEO of SNC-Lavalin, now known as Atkins Realis. Previous episodes, people, trust me, these guys are in cahoots with Carney and Brookfield. This is your high-speed rail. Oh, the Eastern elites. God, they gotta go. These hearings followed the investigation by the Orders Office of the Syndic, which then launched a formal complaint against a former engineering executive. The Syndic made 14 separate allegations against Mr. Lemeray as part of its disciplinary complaint, which are related to previous legal cases involving the company. The allegations link broadly to SNC-Lavalin's past business conduct as it sought contracts in Libya, as well as political financing activities in Montreal. Now, this is a mouthpiece that was written to kind of give him defense, but I'm going to read a little wee bit of it off. Montreal 13th, August 13th, 2025, an engineer for nearly 6 decades, Jacques Lemaire, former president and CEO, blah, 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 announced today his resignation as a retired member of the Ordre des Ingénieurs du Québec. He is denouncing a decision by the Order's disciplinary council that he considers unfair and unreasonable, despite the acquittal on several charges following the process he describes deeply unfair. I'm proud of my career in the role, blah, 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 but I have no choice but to resign. Mr. Lemeray points out that when he left the company in early 2009, SNC-Lavalin was an inviolable financial footing and had world-class technical expertise. Among his achievements during his tenure were major international projects, the acquisition of CANDU nuclear technology, CANDU, listening, and assets that generated more than $6 billion in profits for the company. A questionable complaint. Mr. Lemeray says that they're particularly disappointed with the way that the disciplinary investigation was conducted. The Syndic de Order granted complete immunity to certain witnesses with conflicts of interest, while seeking to hold me responsible for actions for which those same witnesses were found guilty in other proceedings. He also denounced the fact that he was being prosecuted even though he no longer practices as an engineer and left SNC-Lavalin in 2009, more than 16 years ago. Now, again, you can read this entire article. It's all there. But what they're getting at is stuff like this, where there was an investigation and a former SNC-Lavalin executive was sentenced to prison with a bridge bribery case. This is just one of hundreds upon hundreds that mainstream hides from you. This is the Gazette. Now, this should have been front page news. This should have been national news. Because while all this was going on, there were transitions and hiding, changing of names in order to protect this company, like the Turd did, in order to save his voting base and the people who give and support donations to the Liberal Party, the Laurentian elite. This company is evil. I mean, evil. What they did in third world countries is disgusting. They should, if anything, lost their Canadian citizenship for what they've done. Now, this everybody's making big news about. There's like, this is big news. This is big news. This is actually old, but I'm glad it's being brought up again. So they're calling it a hub exclusive. The Liberals' climate policies are projected at nearly $1 trillion to take out of Alberta's economy by 2050. There's been widespread assumption that the federal government's 2030 emission reduction plan in general and its proposed oil and gas emissions cap in particular represent a threat to Alberta's economy. Some have characterized the potential harm to be similar to a magnitude of the National Energy Program in the 1980s. It's been difficult, however, to fully understand the economic and fiscal costs represented by these policies. Back in 2023, the Alberta government commissioned a report by the Conference Board of Alberta to investigate these questions. The final report presented to the government in January 2025 included a set of detailed Excel data tables examining the year-to-year economic and fiscal impacts through 2050, based on a set of different policy scenarios. The report was publicly released on March, but the detailed data tables were not. I submitted a lengthy Access to Information Act in April and recently obtained partial information from the data tables. The numbers affirm many people's negative suspicions about the severe impact on the federal climate policies on the Alberta's economy. In particular, nearly $1 trillion in economic activity is estimated to be lost from Alberta's economy between 2030 and 2050. Key findings. Alberta's economy, real GDP, estimated $23.1 billion smaller in 2030, growing to $73.6 billion smaller in 2050. Alberta's cumulative economy is estimated to be $941.7 billion smaller between 2030 and 2050. Alberta's real oil and gas sector GDP is estimated to be $19 billion smaller and $59 billion smaller in 2050. This goes on and on and on. The employment losses are estimated to be between 50,700 in 2030, growing to 157,960 in 2050. Alberta's mining and oil and gas extraction production is 1.038 million barrels per day equivalent, lower in 2030, growing to 3.445 million, below average, lower in 2050. It goes on and on. Now, again, this is actually old news, but I'm glad it's been reinvigorated. Here is an article. This one's October 4th, 2024. This is just one of the quick ones I grabbed. It was out there. 1,151,000 jobs. Potential economic cost of the oil and gas emissions cap. Put out by who? Canada Action. It states almost identical to what the Hub is printing today. And let's not forget, this is how the media treated it. Read the date, November 27th, 2024. Canadian Press. Industry not consulted on Alberta's plan to challenge federal emissions cap. Really? Really? So the government doing what they're supposed to do is a bad thing. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'm going to end off with one short clip, a video of a house explosion in Barrie. This is quite wild. right-hand side of the screen. Wild. Absolutely wild. Anyways, you guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you have, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you are subscribed, make sure you punch that notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. Make sure that if you can, to support our channel, you can do so by buying our wicked clothing and merch. We got some crazy clothing. I've been kind of a little bit down, obviously. I've had some family issues, health problems kind of going on. So I've been away. I've got a pile of emails I'm trying to get caught up on here, on getting the rest of this new clothing kind of pushed through as well. And if you can donate. You can do an actual cash donation as well by emailing it to the Canadian Citizen Journal at gmail.com. Until next time, you guys, I'm Alias. Still got the frog to guy. Crazy. Anyways, you've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. Stay informed.